We've made it. We've made it once again, folks. Welcome to the show. We're here on Friday's open topic stream. Flawed Man of God. I'm your host, Stuart Davis. I am a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Not trying to get you join my church or donate to any special cause. What we're here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about the Bible, talk about Christianity, talk about a wide variety of Christian topics, current events, and issues, and give you my perspective on them, one that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. Been a Christian all my life, 40 years non-denominational Protestant. Don't subscribe to any particular denomination or doctrine, just in the word daily, trying to do better each and every day. So if you are interested in learning more about God, becoming a Christian, learning more about Jesus and what it all means, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. You're catching us on an off-topic night. That's how we treat Fridays generally, and because we spend most of the week going over the business of Christianity, discussing mostly Scripture. We are in the midst of reading through the Bible, a couple chapters a night. We're in Second Chronicles, going through that. Just hit the midpoint this week of Second Chronicles, and just working our way through the Old Testament till we get to the New Testament, all the way to Revelation. So, if you are catching this stream for the first time, love to have you tune in more. Hopefully, you can get something out of this. But it's going to be Fridays we talk about different stuff. Usually what I try to do is try to hit things that are definitely going to trip the algorithm and draw more viewers in. But tonight's it's kind of a slow week. Nothing really that want to trip. It's a new month. That's not going to work. I'm going to have to flip that. It's a new month. So there it is for you guys. If you're already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian topics, discussions, welcome as well. Love to have you participate in the chat. We've got a great group of folks who come in and night out and really make this show better. I think you could probably make this show better. And that's why I said I encourage you to give me your thoughts, feelings, impressions, experience, knowledge. Share that with us. We are a small enough community that if you put something in the chat, I'll read and respond to it. It's a great community. Not sure that I deserve it, but I do have it, and I do cherish it. So I'm glad that that folks are tuning in. And this is a flex night, and I say that because the normal stream is 8:30. It normally starts at 8:30, but on Fridays it's flexible. It's flexible because we have family movie night in my household, and that means that I don't start streaming until after all the kids are down, and that's what they are currently doing, settling their heads down and going to bed. Family comes first. That's something that we have that has been very front and center with this channel these past couple of weeks, with introducing a new member of the family. We and my wife did have a baby a couple of weeks ago, and we did have to go back to the hospital last week. So, there's been very little streaming. And I hate stepping away from that from you guys. I like having the conversations and discussions with y'all. But obviously, more important things are at play. And I know you guys understand, and I appreciate that you guys are that way. Some people, we run into people a lot of times that are just abnormally self-centered. And you always wonder, how do you think that way? Anyways, All right, Matt Felty's in the chat. Neo Rice came in earlier. He's on his way to bed. Neo, have a good week. Have a good weekend. Can't wait to catch you again. Said I'm gonna be asleep by the time you go live, but ooh, and all that good stuff. Hope you are well. And hey, everybody. Well, thank you, Neo. Like I said, rest well and enjoy your weekend. Be safe. We'll catch you on the back end. Matt Felty's in here. Happy Friday. Hopefully, we've got some more folks tuning in, filtering in. We're going to talk about movies tonight. It's not going to be a long stream, probably. And I always say that and it ends up being a long stream because you guys get me off topic. You guys get me off topic and and that's where things go. Hang on a sec. There we go. All right, movies. So Memorial Day was this past Monday, and that is something near and dear to me, considering that Memorial Day is a time where we honor our fallen in the military service. I know several folks who were in the service and have either passed after their service or died during their service. I could give stories about it, but I kind of did that last year. And it is good to remember these things, but it is kind of a downer. And it's been a little bit of an emotional last couple of weeks. I don't need to be getting into that. But please take this time to remember folks who do act selflessly. Whether it is in conflict that we agree with or not, a lot of times the motivation and the actions are between an individual and another individual next to them, or an individual and his family, individual and his friends, just making the decision to join the military and put themselves in a position where they may have to sacrifice themselves. But instead, we're going to talk about military movies tonight. And hopefully I'll talk about some of my favorites, and you guys can give me your favorite military war movies or non-war military movies. Waiting for somebody to say Stripes. That would be a good one. If there's another one, I'm just waiting. I'm just interested to see if the chat does get active, may or may not, what it is that you enjoy. I think I'll start with my Starship Troopers. Isn't that a Citizens movie, Nernath? Wouldn't Starship Troopers be a Citizens movie? It's all about doing your part. I wonder if I should read the book. I don't know. Starship Troopers, I thought it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie to watch. It's got a lot of great lines to it, like a lot of fun movies to watch. It's got a lot of great quotes to it. But I'm thinking more along the lines of conventional, loosely based in historical or current events type of war movies, not the sci-fi movies, sci-fi war movies. So the book is way different. I've heard that before, but I guess I'm gonna need to check it out. My favorite war movie, for obvious reasons, is Black Hawk Down. If you don't know the story behind Black Hawk Down, it is a movie that is based off a book that is discussing the events of Operation Gothic Serpent, which happened when I was 10 years old, my son's age actually, in October, where we had several Rangers and Delta operators go in and kind of a snatch and grab operation. Supposed to be very quick. Supposed to not take very long. What are you doing over there? Okay. Put it on the dock. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, it's supposed to be a snatch and grab operation, and things kind of started to go wonky right out the bat. And it was unfortunately a mission that didn't need to happen the way it was. The requested resources were much higher than what President Clinton was willing to commit to the operation, and because of that, we lost 2 aircraft and a fair amount of soldiers. We killed a lot of bad guys, a ridiculous amount of bad guys during that that small battle. But the psychological effect of seeing soldiers pulled out, stripped down naked, and then paraded through the streets was one that deeply affected our household. It became the incident became more personal to me. One of my drill sergeants was in 10th Mountain, and he was in Mogadishu at that time, and he was part of the group sent in to help get the Rangers out. And he recounted a couple of stories to us while we were very raw recruits. And he was my favorite drill sergeant. I learned a lot from him. I looked up to him, even though he was very short. I looked up to him in the way he carried himself and what he taught me a lot. And the other thing was I would call him my mentor at my when I got to my regular duty station was former Task Force 160th. Now, Task Force 160th, that's SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. He was a very young guy, very young crew chief who was in one of the super helicopters, the Supers, Blackhawks, circling around Mogadishu when all this broke loose. And just knowing people and having people that I looked up to a great deal who were there and seeing how it affected them was very just made it very near and dear to me. I read Mike Durant's thoughts on things. He wrote a book called In the Company of Heroes. I read it before I deployed. It was about kind of his time learning about SEER School, developing different weapons or different tactics for that, and then experiencing captivity. He is the pilot who did survive the second Blackhawk crash, and was held in captivity for many days. But I thought but when the movie came out, it was fantastically cast. I think a lot of big names are in there, and a lot of the special effects are I think they do just a really good job capturing things in a way that a movie is going to be able to. There's just some things you can't really brown out the way the dust blows. It's kind of realistic. It's very difficult to make that look. I guess it must be very difficult to make that look the way it really looks when you see it. I thought they did an excellent job kind of moving through things, and it ended up being just about as much as I asked for with it. So that was great. And I saw somebody, Mr. Felty, Benning, being renamed for Hal Moore. Well, if you're going to rename Benning, since we're renaming all of this, I heard Bragg's getting renamed. It's Liberty now. Fort Lee out here near Richmond is getting named to something Patriot or something like that, I'm sure. They're renaming all of them because we have to erase our history because it's offensive to everybody. But if you're going to rename a fort after somebody, Hal Moore is a hell of a guy to do it. We Were Soldiers came out almost at the same time as Black Hawk Down did. In fact, I remember when I was in school, Black Hawk School for the Army, we were our entire company was taken to watch Black Hawk Down, and then later to watch We Were Soldiers. So that all happened over the course of a couple of months. It's another helicopter movie. It's another war movie, and it's another movie that's definitely in my top 10 of war movies. I think Mel Gibson was amazing in that. So was Sam Elliott, who had one of the best characters in war movies, period, as a sergeant major. And it gets a little mushy, and it gets a little bit it gets away from the war movie to talk about the effects it has at home. And it kind of takes away from it a little bit, but I think that's something that other people appreciate. And I don't think in the very end it kept me from enjoying the other parts of the movie. I read the book We Were Soldiers. It is a very different book. It was more of a discussion of how he broke down, how Moore wrote it with the gentleman who was taking the pictures, the journalist who was there. They wrote it together, but Hal Moore basically talks about the strategy and what exactly went down and what was going through his mind as he was moving units around and reacting to the battle as it developed for him. He did, and you could tell by reading the book that he knew his troops, and that's a lot of troops to know, and yet he still knew them. He did background on each of the guys, like he would talk about a machine gun crew, 3 or 4 guys, and he would talk about what each of them was doing, where each of them was from, who they were married to, if they had kids, all this other stuff. He cared about the troops that he was in command over. Everything about him screamed great leader, great military guy, somebody you'd really want to go into combat with and feel like he had he was at least considering your life in the battle somewhat, or that you mattered to him. And I think you could tell that these people, these men that he led in the battle, and many of them did not come home. Many of them did not survive the battle. He cared about each and every one of them, to know who they were and still remember who they were to this day. Well, I mean, when he wrote it, Hal Moore has passed away. But again, he was a national treasure, especially to our military, and somebody that we could all learn much from. Emmanuel's in the chat. Konnichiwa, my homies. So I guess The Mouse That Roared doesn't make a military film cut. I don't know. I don't know anything about that movie. And they're saying Black Hawk Down, or never mind. Yes, that's what we were discussing. I was starting off with my favorite. Matt Felty said it was influential for me too. My path changed after enlisting in 2001. Hey, we enlisted in the same year. But I went to MEPS twice to get guaranteed a RIP training path in my contract. I was just trying to get the signing bonus and get the quickest path to pilot school, to flight school, because I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. Ended up just settling for crew chief. Cooper, I cannot uphold the mission. Take the SIR kit. SCR kit. Is it supposed to be SEER? Emmanuel, and I bet it was hellish going through the SEER training. SEER training is wild. My brother, who did the exact same job I did on a different aircraft for the Marine Corps, they require all their crew chiefs to go through SEER training, and he didn't. There's different places to do it. The Army does a lot of it down at Fort Bragg. I say down at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. My brother did it up in Maine in the winter. It was freezing, and he told talking to him about it. There's always the capture and the interrogation, harsh interrogation tactics, and stuff like that. But I think what bothered him more than anything about SEER school is just how cold he was up there. I mean, said, although Behind Enemy Lines is a bit cheesy, but it's a good movie, as well as we can't forget Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan, interesting because the unit I deployed with was 29th Infantry, and they play a big role in that movie. Actually, is one that I don't really get behind a whole lot. It was difficult for me to get into that movie. There was a whole lot of fanfare about it. My favorite D-Day movie was actually it's an old one, and it is a star-studded cast as well for the time. Was The Longest Day. That's a black and white movie. I mean, we're talking John Wayne, Charles Bronson, all sorts of guys are in there. It's a great movie. Saving Private Ryan. I don't for some reason, and I'm not saying this has got to be just me because so many people love this movie. It just doesn't develop well for me, and I hate that part with the coward in there. That really that bugs me, but that's just a personal thing for some reason. But Behind Enemy Lines, I haven't seen Behind Enemy Lines. I remember when the events of that happened because I think that's the Bosnia pilot that's the U.S. pilot who got shot down in Bosnia. Still haven't seen that one. It's difficult for me to see war movies these days. The closer they get to the closer they get in time to Iraqi freedom, the more the harder it is for me to watch it, because I haven't seen Lone Survivor. I haven't seen American Sniper. I haven't seen Hurt Locker. I haven't seen was it 13 Hours? I haven't seen the Horse Soldiers, the one they did about the SEALs riding the horses. I haven't seen those. It's just difficult for me to watch, and I end up just kind of checking out. What reminded me of all this was I watched this week an old movie that came out around the same time that Top Gun did. You see there was a lot of jet movies. The 80s had a bunch of great movies, but a lot of jet movies coming out around the same time the original Top Gun, which is way up there on the list for me. Top Gun is one of my favorite war movies of all time, even though it's not really a war. It's not really a real war. They're not fighting it's not based on a true story. It's just a great movie. But around the same time, a book or a movie came out based on a Dean Koontz book novel, Flight of the Intruder. It is about an A6 intruder pilot in Vietnam, and it unfortunately doesn't get the special effects treatment that Top Gun did, and it didn't get as much of the they didn't capture the scenes of the in-flight. In Top Gun's no CGI at all. Original Top Gun has zero CGI. It's real pilots, real fighters. and then you got the actors playing the roles. But Fighter Intruder does have some actual flying, but there's times where there's a SAM site, you can tell it's a model kit. There's some explosions like that just you got to be able to move past it. It's a little on the cheesy side, but again, it's the 80s. It's the 80s, and it seemed like it was a little lower budget film. But Danny Glover's in it, and Willem Dafoe does a great job playing his character, Virgil Cole. It's just, it is what it is, right? So if any of you guys are looking for an out of the way war movie to see that you probably maybe never even heard of, but one that you might find is entertaining, and I think does a decent job trying to capture what it's like just to be in a combat environment where the attrition rate is high and morale is low, and how the gallows humor and camaraderie exists. It does a decent job, I think, trying to portray that. Fight of the Intruder. You can buy it on Amazon or rent it on Amazon or whatever other streaming service you can find. But I highly recommend it. It's good. It's a good movie. It's a very interesting movie too. Nerneath Mouse That Roared is a story of a fictional small and poor duchy in Europe who, to receive the economy, declare war on the U.S. in order to lose and have them build better infrastructure. That's actually really cool. Is it just did they make a movie out of it, or is it just a book? That's worth it. To me, that's interesting. Emmanuel saying that's a reference to Titanfall 2 story if you're confused. That clears it up. I still haven't played Titanfall 2. I need to. I have it. I just haven't played it. Emmanuel talking about Saving Private Ryan. The part of the coward always gets me angry, even as an 8-year-old when I first watched the movie. I would think as an 8-year-old, it probably gets you the angriest. As an old guard soldier, I'll mention Gardens, James Earl Jones. I haven't heard of that one. James Earl Jones did well, and it was about being disheartened like I was during the start of GWOT. Would have been in Afghanistan, not Arlington. That might be. That's probably I probably won't see that. That's interesting. I haven't heard about that. I didn't know anything about Gardens of Stone. Oh wow, yeah, appropriating title. Woo. Woo. But yeah, I talked about this in my Bible study class or in my Sunday school class on Sunday. You're talking about there's decisions you can make that are hard to make. Like there's right and wrong, and there's right decisions that are hard to make, and wrong decisions that are easy to make. And they can be easy to identify, which is easy and hard, just hard to follow through. But then there are hard to identify which decision is the right decision and which decision is the wrong decision. And I think that it's difficult looking back and having fought in Iraqi freedom and wondering, did we do any good whatsoever? Or you can argue, did we do good, but was it enough good to outweigh the cost or outweigh any other bad things that happened? Same thing with Afghanistan. Same, which we experienced to a lesser extent what Vietnam veterans had to deal with coming back, because that was another disheartening, demoralizing war that cost much more blood and money. Or I don't know about the money. I mean, we spent a ton of money there, but we definitely lost more soldiers, sailors, and airmen there. And it's a difficult thing to kind of try to wrap your head around. And usually I only start to do that around Veterans Day, but it came up because we were talking about judges. And and knowing when decisions should be made that were right or wrong. But no, that's interesting. Jones's character was mad not to be in Vietnam. I've heard of this. The Green Zone does well, in my opinion, when you're ready for OIF stuff. Some focuses more on CIA character. I do, and I like movies that kind of take a different approach to things. It's, there's always the action and the drama of the warfighter in battle, but there's also interesting and compelling content in the other things that go around, the intelligence things. That's what I like about. I'm getting ready to bring up one of his movies. What I like about the Jack Ryan series of books, when Tom Clancy is writing them, you're getting a little bit of each thing. So you get Navy, you get aviation, you get Army, you get espionage, you get satellites, you get the war on terror, the war on drugs, all the war in in Ireland. It's a bio warfare, all sorts of different aspects of an environments that each book is kind of addressing as it's moving through, a timeline, a good timeline. I think I've put it out there before. If anybody's looking for a good, techno thriller book series to get into, immediately recommend the Jack Ryan series. You can start with Without Remorse, which is really kind of a prequel book. Jack Ryan's not actually in there. His dad's in there. His dad is in the book. And I think maybe Jack's makes a very short appearance in one chapter, and it's like a couple of sentences, and that might be it. You can either start with that or you can start with Patriot Games. Patriot Games is a good movie. Don't really consider that a war movie, but what it is, I do consider a war movie that I very much enjoy is The Hunt for Red October, which is another Jack Ryan movie read by Tom Clancy. I think that's really well done. It's got this. It's Cold War. It's submarines and Navy. It's espionage. It's good. I just like it. And Alec Baldwin's personality aside, I generally like his acting, and I think that he does the best job portraying Jack Ryan. He looks like I imagine Jack Ryan would look, and he kind of behaves like him. Harrison Ford does a decent job. With kind of playing Jack Ryan's personality, but he does not look like Jack Ryan at all. Also, Jack Ryan's pretty based. Emmanuel says, I was a child during the early 2000s and 2010s, so I still need to read up on the history that happened while I was a child. One thing they haven't talked, if you want to talk about something that happened pre 9/11, something to read up on is the bombing of the USS Cole. That's one thing that a lot of folks don't consider. It's often looked over, but in Virginia, this one hits kind of close to home for me because I went to high school with a guy who was killed on the Cole. His dad, understandably, was consumed with grief. Is probably still consumed with grief. I don't know if he's alive anymore, but we have a bridge in town named after him. We have he got a Virginia has a ridiculous amount of license plate, different custom types of license plates. We have one, remember the USS Cole. That's because his dad wanted to bring awareness to it. This all was going on prior to 9/11, but in the year 2000, it happened my senior year in high school. And I rode the bus with Joe Clodfelter, who was one of the young men who died when that bombing happened. Some Yemenis terrorists basically snuck their way or, conned their way to get close enough to the to the ship, they were able to detonate an explosive device, and it did a lot of damage. Another thing that kind of happened that I never hear anybody talk about around that time, around the year 2000, was we had a P-3 Orion that the Chinese captured with the crew, and there was a whole standoff thing. Because when I would remember before 9/11, because I enlisted in January of 2001, so several months before 9/11. Before 9/11, leading up to my enlistment and once I was enlisted, I was convinced that we were going to go to war with China. We were going to go to war with China. And that was one of the reasons. And that's me just being young and foolish and listening to the news and buying everything that's going on without considering all the other aspects that go along with that. The Mouse That Roars is a British film from '59 where Peter Sellers plays 3 roles. Peak entertainment if you like dry humor and Sellers. I'm definitely interested in picking that up. It is based on a book. Connery is fantastic. Stalag 13 is another classic. One that nobody here's mentioned yet that I haven't seen completely all the way through is Fury. Fury is a good movie. Does a great job and just kind of very entertaining, very well done. I like the new Midway movie and the old Midway movie. They're two very different kind of approaches to the battle. I love that the new Midway movie put Jimmy Doolittle's raid in there. I like how both movies basically did a good job telling the story that General Yamato did not think war with the United States in World War II was a good idea. He did not. He did not think that we were a foe. We have awakened a sleeping giant, right? He seemed to be a very wise man. He seemed to be a man who respected his American counterparts, and he had a plan, but it didn't go his way. Like it is, this is what we need to do. They would go do it. The attack on Pearl Harbor was supposed to take out aircraft carriers. Nobody really appreciated carrier warfare as well as the Japanese and some of the Americans as well. It was still very much naval warfare back then was still very much weighted on battleships and such. What happened during World War II is everybody realized, aircraft carriers are very important. They can ruin your day. And I think that both, I would love to see somebody do a movie, do a biopic on Yamato. Maybe I should pick up a biography on him on sometime. But I really appreciated that. I would have liked to have it focused on the dive bombing portion of that much better than the original movie did. Just kind of imagining yourself. I had the owner of a company I used to work for. It was a small business, so I knew him all right, and he knew that I was a vet. His dad was a tail gunner on a Dauntless dive bomber, and you imagine how hairy that ride is for pilot and co-pilot, or pilot and tail gunner. It has got to be insane. And the fact that you probably weren't going to make it was another wild thing. Look, you're going to be a pilot. Because you're flashy, right? You kind of got to be in the aviation scene, but most of y'all can probably picture pilots. They're very cocky. We fly. They're, they're pilots, right? And it's they're self-descriptive. But you imagine they're going out there on a mission. they know there's a good chance they're not coming back. And I don't think they did a good enough job with Ensign Gay's torpedo run and how heroic that was, and the fact that he basically once he was the sole survivor of his entire torpedo squadron, and he basically watched Pearl Harbor happen while floating in the water. I'm going to get to that in a second, Blaine, because I think, let's say it. Fury is very flashy. It looks dope. It's just very good. I like that movie a lot, and the ending is cool too. Blaine says the best war movie is Inglourious Basterds, which I still haven't seen. Nernath, I think Midway did all right, better than 1914 and Dunkirk, which were disappointing. I still have to see 1914 and Dunkirk. Those are big on my list. In fact, I should see those soon. But there's no way in hell that tank survived all those shots. You will be surprised what can take out a tank and what a tank can survive. It is much like military machinery. Sometimes is much like a person. One guy can get shot once and go down, and he's done for, and a guy can get riddled, and somehow he survives. Devotion was all right. I haven't seen that. Yeah, that's what I want. I want to see Devotion, but they spent 15 minutes too long on racism when it was great without it. Yeah, you always see that, and it takes away from it. Same thing with Red Tails. I haven't seen Red Tails. Not interested in seeing Red Tails. Tuskegee Airmen. If you want a good movie about the Tuskegee Airmen, watch the Tuskegee Airmen. That's a much better executed movie, I think, about them, that captured probably what was going on. Memphis Belle. Oh my goodness. That's another movie. That movie I need to go see soon too. Memphis Belle is a great movie. You talk about, there's so many different aspects of war that you can get into with a war movie. Memphis Belle is about it's an amalgamation of events, but it happens with a real B-17 flying fortress named the Memphis Belle. Talks about bombing, and the insanity, how insanely hairy it is to be in a formation of bombers flying over, carpet bombing Europe, and being attacked, and what it's like to fight and die in the air at 20,000 feet. And you think about when guys lined up and shot at each other, like in the Revolutionary or Civil War. It's not all that different, or charged the lines in World War I in no man's land. It's not all that different when you're in a formation of heavy bombers flying high over top the cities, being shot out by fighter planes trying to shoot you down, or being in a dive bomber just in formation going in. Everybody's going to take their run. Everybody's going to make their shots. It's one of the things that I like about, I think it's in Dead of Honor, the book Dead of Honor, where it talks, and they do it again he does it again in another book, Red Storm Rising, which is not a Jack Bryan book. It's a standalone book about what would happen if NATO and the Warsaw Pact got into a conventional war, conventional war back in around the time of the end of the Cold War. And it talks about submarine battles and how that you might hear and know that torpedo is coming to kill you for minutes before it actually hits, and you just have to make peace. You just have to make peace, and pray that it doesn't blow you up. That's not a good way to dying on a submarine. If it doesn't get you instantly, it's not a good way to go. But yeah, Devotion's one that I would like to see, but have been reticent to do it because we don't need to focus on that. We get it. It happened. Let's go. Let's focus on the real heroism of the action. You want to go watch Glory, which is a good movie. Go watch Glory. Pearl Harbor just pisses us off, and we paid them back with a door. Pearl Harbor, the movie, actually is not a war movie. It is a stupid movie, and it should be erased from the annals of anybody's filmography. Watched Hamburger Hill, Don Cheadle, went at betting for Osit. Others on my list, The Thin Red Line. That was a weird one for me. Meh. It was very meh. It was very weird. Thin Red Line was very weird. Full Metal Jacket, great movie on the front end, meh on the back end. The only thing that redeems Full Metal Jacket after the basic training portion of it, is Animal Mother, who's got a bunch of great quotes. Platoon, great movie. Willem Dafoe does basically any war movie with Willem Dafoe in it is worth watching. Apocalypse Now, lots of great lines. Charlie Don't Surf. That's also another weird one. The Patriot. Patriot's great. Man, I didn't even think about The Patriot. Saving Private Ryan, we talked about that earlier. The Patriot's so good. Patriot is so good. That's another thing. War movies with Mel Gibson in them. Nernaev, I'm waiting for Oppenheimer. Me as well. If you want good enemy video, look up Oppenheimer style. And here's Emmanuel. He's ahead of me on this. I just hadn't gotten to the chat yet. Although women love that movie that came out in the 2000 called Pearl Harbor. It's just because Josh Hartnett was in it. And he made up for that awful movie by doing Black Hawk Down, in which he did a very fantastic job in. Pearl Harbor's not a war movie. It's an abomination. But the storyline with the black guy was awesome. Blaine said, Zippang is an anime about a modern Japanese boat, Mirai, going back in time to Midway and deciding to either change history or not. That movie is a ripoff of Final Countdown, which is look, if you guys want a weird 80s movie, so the Final Countdown is about the USS Nimitz getting caught in a storm, some sort of weird temporal storm, and being sent back in time right before Pearl Harbor. So you have a late 80s modern aircraft carrier fully loaded with ordnance in the middle of the Pacific right before Pearl Harbor, and they know everything that happens. And so they end up like they don't know what happened at first, right? But once they figure out that they're in, 1941, they start to, then it comes to question, like you said, you decide to either change history or not. Do you change things or not? But I would like to see Zippang, because I'd like to get the other side about that, because Midway was their turning point. Pearl Harbor, like, one aircraft carrier could probably end that whole war immediately. What is interesting, what they kind of leave out in Final Countdown is aircraft carriers are never on their own. If they went through, the whole battle group goes through, which means the destroyers, the cruisers, the frigates, the submarines, all of that's going with them. So you're going to basically have a little flotilla heading in. Oh my goodness. Meme video. I don't know what that's about. Fury and Inglorious are good. I really enjoyed Fury. I think everybody who watches Fury really enjoys it. I think it's not often everybody's favorite, but it's often in everybody's top 5, top 10. The movie We Were Soldiers was awesome. Emmanuel, you hadn't gotten here, I guess. We talked about that one pretty early. That was a really good one. I'm a big fan of We Were Soldiers. I have it on Blu-ray. What about Tora Tora Tora? Tora 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 is good. Look, any of the oldies, Kelly's Heroes, The Dirty Dozen, Patton is a great movie. if you guys are interested, and if you haven't seen Patton, if you would like to learn about one of the greatest generals in American history, Patton is a great movie about his time in World War II. George C. Scott does a great job on that. Also, The Patriot, Mel Gibson is great. Patriot's good. There's another one that he did, I think. It was pretty good. Patton isn't a good historical reference. It's good enough, Nernath. If you really want it, then go read War as I Knew It by George Patton. It's kind of to me, it's kind of similar to the book We Were Soldiers, but you're getting it from a cavalry general. I love Patton. I think Patton's a great book, a great movie. And I can't remember whether it's Patton. I think they talk about it in Patton, but they mention it in The Longest Day, because The Longest Day does a lot of the build up for D-Day. Saving Private Ryan starts at D-Day. The Longest Day talks about the build up before that. But one of the reasons that the Germans and the Nazis did not think that the Allies were going to be landing around the time that they did is because Patton was still down south. The Axis, mostly the German generals, widely regarded Patton as the Allies' greatest general. They had much more respect for him than any of the others. And they figured the Allies would have to be nuts to launch a full-scale invasion without Patton. And I think, and I don't know if it's true or not, but he was deliberately kept out of the D-Day invasion because because they thought it would fool the Germans. I don't know if that was because Patton and Eisenhower didn't have the easiest relationship, and Patton was not the easiest guy to get along with. I don't know if there was some punishment behind that, but that was Hacksaw Ridge. Yes, Matt, thank you. What was I talking about? He was kept out of the invasion as a decoy, or it could have been punitive. Patton was a wild card. It's kind of it would be amazing to try to imagine what his military career would look like if he had joined the military at any other time. Emmanuel, nothing more American than having DACA, oil, and freedom day. There's a reason people are still trying to get into this blessed nation. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else is out there. What else is a good war movie? We've talked about a lot of them. Mentioned Memphis Belle. Iron Eagle. Does anybody remember Iron Eagle? Where the war that we fought with the teenagers' dad was shot down over generic Middle Eastern country and was going to be hung, but we decided not to do anything about it. So he borrowed a couple of jets with an old salty colonel and decided he was going to go rescue his dad and shoot down a bunch of planes while he had it. More planes, mind you, than Maverick and Iceman did combined. Just going to put that out there. And he did it in an F-16, which is not as... He did an F-16, so he was doing air-to-air warfare. He was doing ground-to-air warfare. Oh, national hero. I don't know why we don't talk... Oh! Missing a big one, guys. You'll let me down here. To Hell and Back. To Hell and Back is an older war movie about Audie Murphy, where Audie Murphy plays Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy, if you guys don't know, he is one of the most decorated soldiers of all time. His story is compelling. And anytime you read the citation on a Medal of Honor, especially in World War II or Vietnam, you get some very hairy stories. We had a guy, I'll sidebar that in a second. I'll do it. Audie Murphy was a true American hero. I mean, came from the heartland of America, was too young, had been turned down by the Marine Corps. Was too young to actually be in war. To actually enlist. So forged documents, got in, went overseas, ended up just doing one amazing feat after another. And came back. It's a little bit. He was a very well-known hero at that time. Came back, became an acting star. He played in a few roles. Nothing prolific, obviously. He wasn't John Wayne or Jimmy Stewart or somebody like that. But he played in a few roles, like his own movie. And how about that? You're such a war hero that you play yourself in the war movie. But he was that young that he was able, and he looked like a kid all the time. He always looked young for his age. And All's Quiet on the Western Front. We have not mentioned that movie. But he had a lot of emotional baggage. It's one of the things that, we've ruined the term PTSD for soldiers because we've used it for so many other things. PTSD from combat and that kind of trauma really needs to be put in its own category. And what they used to call it is probably what we should still call it is battle fatigue. I think that's a more warrior term for it. I think it's more appropriate for that battle fatigue. Audie Murphy suffered from that. His family suffered from that. And I think that adding onto that kind of the fame made life very difficult for him. But you want to talk about a man and a name that the U.S. Army reveres, right up there with Patton, right up there and above Hal Moore was Audie Murphy. It's a good movie. It's a good movie to watch because you get a kind of a feel for that. Now for my sidebar, because this involves my family. My grandmother, I'll preface this with me. My grandmother did not get along very well. So my grandmother was the consummate socialite. Right. There was a gentleman. Hold on. Let me pull up his name, and and as a way of honoring him and apologizing on behalf of my family, making life difficult for him. Hold up. Here we go. Yeah, Colonel Van T. Barfoot. I knew I was going to find it. Let's see if I can get his, I can pull up his citation. Okay. All right, I'll read this in a bit. So Mr. Barfoot, American hero. This was, well, let me look at the date on this news article. Oh, stupid Richmond Times and their stupid. $2009. Okay, good enough. So back in 2009, all right, I hear about this story. Man's got a flagpole in his in front of his home that he uses, and he is very conspicuous about and very disciplined about having a large flagpole in front of his house that he owns, and making sure that he is taking the flag up in the morning and down in the evening. I mean, this is old school military right now. And anybody who's been in the military knows about the flags. Flags going up and the flags going down. He didn't have a cannon. He didn't have a cannon to make it that official, but he also happened to live in an HOA. In the HOA, decided that they had a problem with his flagpole because it didn't align with their covenant, and so they gave him a bunch of grief about it. And he told them basically to piss off. I'm going to have this. I'm not to be trifled with. I'm not doing it just for an HOA. And so they took him to court over it. They put it, and unfortunately for the HOA, and fortunately for him, his kids, his family, went to the news about it. And the news started running the thing. HOA, and listen to, I mean, you couldn't draw up a better PR campaign on this. HOA goes after war hero with the Medal of Honor over having a United States flagpole. This is 2009, right? This is before this year where everybody would hate the fact that he had an American flag. This is 2009. And so I'm reading the article. I'm like, this is insane. At the time, I'm also living in a HOA. So I am very much sympathizing with Mr. Barfoot. And I look and I see the HOA for now. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, my grandma lives in that HOA. So I called my grandma and I was like, hey, what's going on in your subdivision? And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, there's this World War II veteran who won the Medal of Honor, or who was awarded the Medal of Honor. And before I can even get it out, she goes, oh, that guy. Because she's on the board. She's one of the people giving him a bunch of grief. And she goes through this whole tirade about how he's a nasty man, because anybody she didn't like was a terrible person, was the worst person on the planet. And that's how she reacted. She went through this whole tirade about it. And when she was done, I was like, you need to leave that man alone. Because I just finished reading his citation. He is not scared of you. And you are not going to win this. This is in the press. You guys are bad guys. I agree that you guys are bad guys. I don't care if your family, you're wrong. Go apologize to that man and don't bother him anymore. Now, she's not going to listen to me because me and her didn't get along very well. But they did end up apologizing and not messing with him anymore and leaving him alone with his flagpole, as they should have. So let's talk about Van Thomas Barfoot. Right. We're going to read his citation. Details. Rank: second lieutenant. Rank at the time of action: technical sergeant. Conflict: World War II. Unit: third platoon, third platoon, Company L, 3rd Battalion, 157th Infantry, 45th Infantry Division. U.S. Army, Medal of Honor action date, May 23rd. Not that, whoa, coming up on the 80th year anniversary on this. To May 23rd, 1944. Medal of Honor action place near Carano, Italy. Citation. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of life above and beyond a call of duty on 23 May 1944 near Carano, Italy, with his platoon heavily engaged during an assault against forces well entrenched on commanding ground, Second Lieutenant Barfoot, then technical sergeant, moved off alone upon the enemy flank. He crawled to the proximity of one machine gun nest, and made a direct hit on it with a hand grenade, killing 2 and wounding 3 Germans. He continued along the German defense line to another machine gun emplacement, and with his Tommy gun, killed 2 and captured 3 soldiers. KD ratio going up. K's and A's, man. Members of another enemy machine gun crew then abandoned their position and gave themselves up to Sergeant Barfoot. So he's killed 4, wounded 3, captured 3, and we can assume if this is another machine gun position, he's now captured another 5. So 2 dead. 4 dead, 3 wounded, 8 captured by himself. So far. We're not done yet. Leaving the prisoners for his support squad for everybody else, leaving his prisoners for his support squad to pick up, he proceeded to mop up positions. I'm reading this verbatim. He proceeded to mop up positions in the immediate area, capturing more prisoners and bringing his total count to 17. Later that day, after he had reorganized his men and consolidated the newly captured ground, the enemy launched a fierce armored, that's tanks and half-tracks, people, a fierce armored counterattack directly at his platoon's position. He is in an infantry company, guys. He is not in an armored company. He's not in mechanized infantry. He doesn't look like it anyway. Fierce armored counterattack directly at his platoon's positions. Securing a bazooka, Sergeant Barfoot took up an exposed position directly in front of 3 advancing Mark 6 tanks. 3 tanks. Let's not even get into the Mark 3. I mean, the Mark 6. 3 tanks. 3 Mark 6 tanks. By himself, 1 man, and a bazooka. From a distance of 75 yards, his first shot destroyed the track of the leading tank, effectively disabling it, while the other 2 changed direction towards the flank. As the crew of the tank dismounted, Sergeant Barfoot killed 3 of them with his Tommy gun. He is stacking bodies by himself. Killed 3 of them with his Tommy gun. He continued onward into enemy terrain and destroyed a recently abandoned German field piece with a demolition charge placed in the breach. This is all for good measure, folks. He goes, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I also placed a demo charge on a field piece just to make sure that they couldn't use it again. While returning to his platoon position, Sergeant Barfoot, though greatly fatigued by his Herculean efforts, assisted 2 of his seriously wounded men 1,700 yards to a position of safety. Sergeant Barfoot's extraordinary heroism, demonstration of magnificent valor, and aggressive determination in the face of point-blank fire are a perpetual inspiration to his fellow soldiers. What more can you ask? He did a company's worth of work, folks. This citation is insane. It starts off, a lot of citations start off like this. One man or a man in a crew, and he's just the only one who lives. They're taking out machine gun positions, right? One position after another position after another position, killing Germans or Italians or amalgamation of the two. Let me make sure the Mark 6 is what I think it is. Okay, not the Mark 6 that I thought it was. I was thinking that's a British tank. That's not the right. Hang on. There we go. You were a German Italian MR. I'm sorry. I was thinking the Mark 6. I was thinking the Mark 6 was just the main Mark 6, the Tiger. The Mark 6 is a Tiger. 3 German Tiger tanks. He disabled one. He stood, a man on his own, stood alone with a bazooka in front of 3 Tiger tanks in Italy. And he said, you better bring more than this. Disabled one and scattered the other 2. Made sure he went up there, killed the crew, and then for good measure made sure that the some random gun he came across. Hey Hans, what is that man on the cliff doing? What does he think he's going to do to the tank? Yeah. I don't have to take the tank out. I just have to immobilize it. Because a tank that can't move while still dangerous is a sitting duck. You know what a Thunderbolt can do? The P-47 Thunderbolt can do to a tank, even if it's a Tiger? Oh, 75 yards. All right. If you haven't been to the Patton Museum, it used to be in Fort Knox. When I went to basic training in Fort Knox, it was still there, but apparently recently it's been moved to Fort Benning. They have a Tiger tank there. If you can go to a museum where you can find a Tiger tank, it is a big tank. Look, today's tanks are, without question, monsters. But if you think about it considering the size of tanks back then, Tiger was a big one. This is a heavy tank. The distance of 75 yards, he's less than a football field away. So if you can think of yourself on a high school football field, which is a good thing. He took up an exposed position directly in front. So think of yourself in front on a football field, and a Tiger tank is 3/4 of the way on the other side. How naked are you going to feel? How naked are you going to feel with 3 of them there? Guys, this man became a legend in a matter of hours. Bazooka, machine gun, demo charges. That's all, dude. I read this before I called my grandma. I gave her grief about this for years. Because one, I was mad at her for being part of the fact that somebody should ever bother this man for the rest of his life. You should be publicly whipped if you cut in front of him in any type of line, right? The picture. I'm going to show you guys the picture. I'm just going to share the screen. I'm leaving Emmanuel's comment up here because it's great. All right, share screen. Daniel Barfoot. Look at this. Look at this man stare. This man has no chill. I take that back. He had enough chill to take prisoners. Grenades, Tommy guns, bazookas, demo charges. Kind of in that order. Whoo, man. Guys. I mean, I remember what I always remember about it is the standing in front of the tanks. But every time I read it, I'm just amazed. So, all right, guys. What are these HOAs grandma's going to do to me with whizzing by? Look, lucky he didn't show up to the bazooka at the HOA meeting. Is what they're lucky. He goes, look, I got my Tommy gun here and I got my bazooka. Which one do you want? We can play it just like the game Worms. He is a blessing. A blessing. I hope this man is Christian. I hope this man accepted Christ as his Lord and Savior. We need the Lord desires warriors like this. But yes, I gave her grief about this because at one point I said, this man stared down a German tank by himself on foot. There's not a thing you can do to scare this guy. If he says he's not going to do something, he's not going to do it. You just better accept that fact. You'd have to bulldoze his house. And considering his reputation with tracked vehicles, that's probably not a good idea. So, like I said, local news got a hold of it. The community was upset. The HOA was embarrassed, and they let him. They left him alone. And it was one more thing. It was one more cause of conflict between me and my grandmother. I'm done with it. All right. I'm going to wrap up the show in a minute. I'll wrap the show right now. I think that's a good Ooh, The Deer Hunter. I feel like I've seen parts of this movie. Anything with Christopher Walken, I'm interested in. He is great. Flags of Our Fathers, Letters from Iwo Jima, directed by Eastwood, also great. Band of Brothers, the show, the miniseries. That to me, that was Saving Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan for me. Band of Brothers. I thought that was the one that I really got into. And Mars, your wife doing all right, man? Yeah. Yeah, we're doing great. Doing great. Baby girl is well behaved and making life easy for us, which is good for her. But thank you for asking. I appreciate that. All right, let me go back and pick up. I'm gonna pick up on the comments, and then we'll close out. F-15s are technically rockets. Yes. F-16s in Iron Eagle 1, though, Nernath. They're F-16 Fighting Falcons, not F-15 Eagles. Monuments Men was different and a good one. I think I've seen parts of that. I don't think we've mentioned, we talked about that a little bit. Oh, yes, I'll do push-ups, lol. All's quiet on the Western Front. They asked Murphy to show his war face. Then after he demonstrated, they asked him never to do that on camera again. I wonder if that was because it was so bad or if it was so good. MR late to the game. Sorry, buddy. Emmanuel, as I'm reading it, based. No one messes with old school military, man. The Zook clap. Can we talk about Laurie Allen Tomey, the commie killer? We can next week. We will pull that one up. Anytime, dude, guys, one of the things we should probably make a habit of doing is just pulling up Medal of Honor and like Silver Star, Distinguished Flying Cross, like heavy awards, and just reading citations, because this is stuff like this is it's amazing. This is just a man. This guy was 10 miles from where I live, right? I could have bumped into this guy, who probably said excuse me to this man, because I don't bump into people without saying excuse me to this man at a grocery store. I could have been fueling up my car next to him, and I just see, oh, it's a nice old man. Maybe he's wearing a World War II hat. Maybe I see him at the VFW lodge. Think about these people. This guy was walking around, and nobody other than his family and probably some of his war buddies in his VFW lodge had any idea what this man had done and was capable of. And he just existed. He just existed. And nobody knew until somebody pissed him off. And his family, who loved him very much, decided they wanted to, they were going to make the world know. Amazing. Herculean indeed. Yeah, I love that. This was written by his commander of some sort. Extraordinary heroism, demonstration of magnificent valor and aggressive determination in the face of point-blank fire, or a perpetual inspiration to his fellow soldiers. Only thing it needs at the end of it is an amen. This guy is literally the coolest guy ever. He's an inspiration for the Master Chief. Hey, Luigi, this a guy know how to toss him in the bocce ball. Watch out. Dude, he got flower power. That Mario's got flower power. Abrams on auto fire is amazing. Abrams on anything is amazing. One of the cool things about being at doing basic training at Fort Knox back then, since it was armor capital of America, when we did our road marches, a lot of times the OSIT cavalry guys would be driving their tanks in the same area. So we'd be on a road march, and we just have a column of Abrams tanks or Bradleys just drive right by us. Nothing hypes you up more than being near an Abrams tank. I love it. I love it because you can't stand next to an Apache, or you stand next to Apaches all the time. They never leave the hangar. Can't stand next to a Cobra or a Huey gunship, right? While it's flying around. So you don't get that much. You don't get the same effect. There's a Vietnam era tank in our VFW near my house. The thing is as big as a building. It's probably artillery then. Probably Korea, maybe. Legit, dude. Thank you for saying. Thank you for sharing. I love it. I love sharing this man's citation. I find it a privilege to do so. MR says seconded. Emmanuel, lol, his face says it all. He looked like what's these HOA grandma's going to do with me, but I read that already. Screw HOAs. I'll put that on there. The meme going around. Sorry, language. You don't have to apologize. The deer hunt. We talked about the deer hunter flags of our fathers. MR. Talk about owning your enemies. You could have smoked some meat with this man. How that's hulking humanity, your humility. One of the things that the somebody got the bright idea is to connect us when I got back stateside with members of the 29th Light Infantry who were at D-Day and talk to them. And again, guys who have been through much worse than I could imagine going through were able to live long, productive, healthy lives and be able to share some stories with us. Made it easy for me to realize that I can deal with whatever issues I have. I mean, what I miss is the American patriotism that was in a lot of hearts. Too bad the powers that be are trying to snuff it out. I said, we are lacking common cause. We are lacking pride in what we are capable of. We are lacking any type of real nationalism. We are lacking faith in our institutions, like the military, like the FBI, like CIA, like things that used to be cool to talk about, right? We've got zero faith in them. Maybe I'll talk about this more. There's a guy on Facebook. What's his name on? Hang on. He's hilarious. He does these little reels, but he's got a YouTube channel where he was talking about something about how woke mentalities are ruining things. Let's see. Nico Ortiz. And there's he's got a 13-minute video. The Army has failed. Just says the Army has failed. It's a great kind of reaction to some of the weird stuff we're doing. I feel like we're doing in the military now. I think it's really hurting us. It feels to me sometimes like we were a shadow of our former selves in our ability to fight. We have immense command over war, the ability to wage war technologically, but the people we have doing the fighting, it's becoming less and less people who are capable and more people who just, I don't know what drives these folks other than, I don't know. It worries me though. But that stuff is all gone. The stuff that we used to love G.I. Joe and Rambo and all these things. We used to look up to police officers in some respect as kids. But at some point, they lost our faith because of their behavior, because of their behavior or the decisions of the people who were in charge of those people. And that's hurt us as a country. And I don't know what the pathway back is. I hope we get to a place where we are we are more trustworthy to each other. We have a better community of people that are looking out for each other and that consider honor and honesty a big thing. But we're all of us are going to have to change for that to be possible. It doesn't help the soldiers that are being brought up, because without our patriotic spirit, then where are the men who will hold their ground against all odds? Yeah, all the veterans, right? But eventually we die. My great uncle got a Bronze Star, Normandy, World War II. Would they have records? They might have been destroyed. These ones obviously made it, and there's probably somebody has records, but there was a big records fire in the 1970s, mid 1970s, at a warehouse. A lot of military records got lost. But if you give me his name, if you've got his name and rank, we might be able to find it. It should be public record. It's a Bronze Star. Those things aren't. Bronze Stars are relatively common. I mean, you don't just earn one for nothing. I take that back. When I was in Iraq, they gave out Bronze Stars like candy. But if you got a V device on it, you did something, or you were involved in something. But yeah, you should be able to. There's resources out there that should be able to get that stuff for you. But yeah, you're inspired to research this? Yeah, definitely. Learn about what your family did, especially family that maybe you got the chance to talk to. So like Modern Warfare 2, that ending is so baller. I don't know what can top that as an American spirit. I mean, I think we still have it in us, but I don't know. They did the same with Purple Hearts. I don't know if my feet would have qualified me for one. I wouldn't have taken it. I don't even take disability on it. So, I hate closing this. I hate closing this window out with Mr. Barfoot, Lieutenant Barfoot. I'll call him that. All right, folks, that's an hour and 30 minutes on a Friday night. What a great conversation. What a great off-topic conversation with my boys. With my boys in the stream. I want you guys to all have a very safe, productive, happy, relaxing weekend. Some announcements. Internet, since you're still living, since you're still with us here in the chat. So Monday, I've got softball. Tuesday, I am taking my kids to a baseball game. Wednesday, I'll be streaming. Thursday, I will not be streaming on this channel. Thursday night at 10-ish, I will be with Eric Rollon on his channel that he is putting life back into. His channel to talk about with a faith discussion. Discussing. I got you, Matt. With a faith discussion about woke culture, woke preachers, and some of the things they say on his channel, Angel Legend. That's Angel Legend. They share an L on there. Friend of the show. He's one of the first people I brought onto the program. We did a whole lot of content together. He moved out into the sticks and has been kind of off the radar for a while, but he is going to be he's putting more effort into his content on his channel. And I'm a buddy. He invited me on Thursday. When is this? This is going to be Thursday night next week at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'll be on his channel. He has got a ridiculous amount of subs. I think he's at 27,000 subs now. He doubled his subs in a matter of a month. He had a lot of subs before because he used to do like building. If y'all don't know anything about Eric Rollon, he is a voice actor. I I was made aware of him because he showed up on Nick's show. I thought that just basically with some of the stuff he said, he would be interested in maybe collaborating with me. I reached out, we talked, we played video games, and started streaming together every other week for a while. And then and I think he and I are going to be spending some time face to face sometime soon, and maybe doing a show together in that way. But am I going to put up a notification on Thursday? Maybe I'll do it on Discord, but it's not going to be on my channel. It's going to be on his channel, which is Angel Legend. ANGELEGEND. Angel Legend, but the L at the end of Angel is the start of the L, is the L in Legend. Maybe he could use Discord if he isn't too much of a boomer. I am too much of a boomer, but maybe I'll put it in the Discord. Jackass. Anyway, so Monday, Tuesday, out of not streaming. Wednesday, I'll be streaming. Thursday, I'll be on another channel. Friday, we'll be back here. Nernaeth, remind me. I got another citation to read. MR, if you find your great uncle's citation and you just want me to read it, if you find it worth sharing, I'll read it. I don't care if I find it worth sharing. If you find it worth sharing, there you go. Emmanuel said, if I can, I'm going to try to super chat, because if it's a big channel, you won't see our chats. It's if you want to, buddy. I know Eric would appreciate the super chat. He is really going to, I think he's really putting an honest effort into making this thing go big. He has got the personality. He has definitely got a great voice for things. And he's not worried about being canceled at all either. So, but we'll see how that goes. We've had this is basically kind of him branching off and taking something that we did together on this show. He did it with Arthur Nix, with Ridgedale Brand this week, I think. But he said we started it with Problems at the Pulpit. It's that's back there in my history of some of our live streams. But good dude, very good dude, very honest and very open, and that's why I like talking to him. He's got a heart for service. He's got a heart for God. And there we go. All right. So that's it. And then so that's the docket for next week. Because Thursday I'll be having my normal dinner with the elders, but usually that's wrapping up around 10 o'clock. So I might just leave that dinner early so I can make it home in time. So going back to this, Matt Felty, salute to Lieutenant Barfoot. Yes. What's left of my 3 Cross American whiskey, it's not the best sipping whiskey, and I didn't bring it. I don't have a glass to really pull it out with, but I'll just finish it off with this. It's a veteran-owned and operated company. I don't know if you can get it outside of Virginia. It's about an hour from where I live, and it is some of the best cocktail liquors you can get. My wife swears that the Black Chevron vodka they make is better than Tito's. Tito's is a step down for her. If she wants vodka, I'm going to Powhatan. Cancellation is a myth. It's just a bunch of oversensitive people looking for control. I mean, it's very real for him. He got canceled out of voice acting for it. That's why Nick brought him onto his show, because it was very similar to the Vic Mignogna situation, or it felt a lot like the Vic Mignogna situation. People didn't like what he was saying, and so all of a sudden it became a thing. So, all right, to Lieutenant Barfoot. Thank you. Thank you for everything you did for us. Rest in peace. Hope you're with Jesus, because you seem like a man for it. Good night, guys. God bless, and have a great weekend. Got some Balvenie here. There you go. There you go. When we were in Philadelphia, my buddy Almonds and Nick were really hitting Bullet Hard, that is a good whiskey. But I was driving us around, so I'm very particular. I don't drink at all when I'm driving. So, but that was what they were drinking a lot of, because that's a really, if you a lot of bars have it, and it's a very quality whiskey. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank all of us. Thank you for being in chat. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all these things. Emmanuel, thank you for your words. MR, thank you for asking about my family. Nernath, thank you for being Nernath might be the ombudsman of this channel unofficially, maybe officially one day. Unofficial ombudsman of this channel. Who else? It's been mostly you guys. Blaine, who is probably streaming right now. I might join him in a moment. We'll see. And Neo, who's asleep right now, who I enjoy. Thank you, Neo. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, safe, productive, relaxing, happy weekend. See you guys on Wednesday. And eventually we'll get down to some normalcy where we're streaming 3 or 4 times a week instead of this two times and maybe 3 times a week. All right, y'all. Have a great evening. I'll see y'all later. God bless. Good night.